Alright, what's up everybody? Joe Dobby here, back at it again with another deck profile for you today. I placed second with black at a kind of like crack-a-box tournament in my locals, my home base, Three Kingdoms. Shout out Three Kingdoms. And yeah, it was really fun. It was very grindy. A lot of the games were very grindy. Black requires a lot of patience, but I played the Date Tech unstoppable blocker. I actually had an early version of it which had Metal Edamon and whatnot. This is kind of like the refined version of that deck, and I managed to play second, only losing to Shine Greymon, going in a record of 3-1. So my first matchup was actually against Red Omni. Craniamon shuts down removal in Red Omni unless you're Alter-essing me. Using Omnimon Alter-ess, it's pretty much you have to swing over my blockers at that point. Next, and I took it 2-1. It was a grind and a half. Like all the games I won, 2-1, you know. Second match, Megazoo managed to actually take it down as well. The blockers, once you bring down the Craniummon, a lot of the removal kind of goes out the window, apart from bounce effects, Digivolve, and all that stuff. So against Megazoo, I kind of just hard played the Craniummon, you know, because they give me a ton of memory and I give them less because of hard playing Craniummon immediately, and it becomes pretty hard to remove from there. In addition to that, my ties actually get my Craniummon to about 14k. That's about Ragnalord levels, but my opponent didn't even get to Ragnalord, so that was okay. Game 3, I was actually facing yellow-red security, guys. So yellow-red sec, probably the most tiring and mentally straining of the matchups in the tournament, besides Shine Greymon, which I lost to, because you really have to be very patient. You kind of just have to build that board full of blockers, get as wide as you can, and then kind of just be Cyclone. And then once you use B Cyclone, basically anything with blocker or reboot has security attack +1, and then you just empty out your opponent's security in one turn. I've actually managed to do that twice in this tournament, so it's really, really good, considering there were only 4 rounds. That said, last game was against Shine Greymon. I got absolutely destroyed. I bricked. In addition to bricking, I also took too long to get to my pieces. Like once my opponent had 3 Tamers, basically Shine Greymon, anything, it was gonna kill anything that wasn't Craniummon with specific stack, and that just made it a lot more difficult to win. And I ended up getting 0-2 there. But we're just gonna dive right into this, guys. So first things first, let's go with the eggs. I am running 4 copies of Kapurimon. Kapurimon on your turn, while this Digimon has reboot, it gets +1000 DP. You gotta have the 4 copies because this can actually mean the difference when you are playing on offense. It could get that Craniummon to 13k. If it has reboot, which ultimately saves that Craniummon from dying into most things in security that might be 12k or higher, right? Or, you know, anything that might be 12k. So because of that, Kapurimon comes pretty clutch. In addition to that, I'm running 1 copy of Kakinmon. When attacking, once per turn, if this Digimon is level 7, you gain 1 memory. I'm actually going to show you guys why this Kakinmon plays such a huge role in this deck when I get it at the right time. And deciding what to Digivolve into in this deck and when to do so is the most important thing. Sometimes you have to gamble and be patient and not get this Kakinmon up to a Craniummon because you don't want to Evo over the Craniummon. You want to Evo into something else to get to a level 7. But with that said, I'm going to dive right into the rookies, and we've got 4 copies of Toyagumon. Very simple, inheritable Digimon effect. Grants reboot to the Digimon stack, so that's all it is. 1k DP. Next, we're going to be running 4 copies of Gotsumon. Gotsumon stops a lot of the early aggression in a lot of rookie decks, rookie-based decks. Sometimes red will swing early if they open with a ton of rookies. Sometimes, well, blue Imperial Dramon, that's an obvious, that's an obvious quick swing early with the jamming Vmon shenanigans, rookie rush as well. So it's a good way to stop it. Gotsumon is also very well protected by Craniummon being a blocker, so pretty awesome. 2 copies of Commandramon, just your choke Digimon, starves your opponent of memory with only 2 cost and 3k DP to play. Sometimes I would end my turn playing Commandramon. I generally actually just hold on to Commandramon while I have other rookies to get into until, either my opponent has a memory tamer or until, I'm ready to put them to 1 and end my turn on that note. So there you go. Next, we are running 2 copies of Chumon. Chumon came super clutch, guys. So Chumon can stop Hammer Sparks. Chumon can stop anything that isn't memory gained through Tamer effects, which means Ragnalord is stopped, Shine Greymon, if Chumon came out a little bit earlier, my opponent wouldn't have been able to do some crazy plays with having 3 Patamon inheritables, but he probably would have taken out the Chumon on a Shine Digivolution, so that would change things. But that said, Chumon, you gotta have memory tamers in the set. I don't know, some people might disagree with that, but I'm pretty much on the side of having at least 1 memory Digimon, sorry, not memory tamer, just because it controls your opponent's ability to extend their plays through, memory manipulation. Craniammon, I only have 1 copy, so I'm only running 1. Would I change that if I had a playset? Probably just dip down to Toyagumon to 3 and then add 1 more Craniammon, or maybe take Commandramon and Toyagumon out 1 copy each and make Craniammon a 3 of. And the reason why is I didn't really see much value in Commandramon, and Craniammon has a very powerful inheritable effect, guys. It's on your opponent's turn. This Digimon gets plus 1000 DP. Pretty gnarly for a rookie, because basically your Tankmon can swing into security, survive potentially, and then on your opponent's turn it's 7k, so it becomes more difficult for things like Dino B or Paledramon to swing over Tankmon, etc., to get like some piercing effect. So pretty good there. Next, we are running 3 copies of Tankmon. The reason why I have 3 copies of Tankmon is to get around the Alter S. When my ultimates are de-digivolved, at least the Tankmon's underneath and it won't die. In addition to that, it's 1 cost in Evo, so very, very strong. Next, I am running 3 copies of Numamon. The ratio of Numamon and Tankmon is very debatable. If you want, you can run 2 copies of Numamon, 4 copies of Tank. Personally, I like the Numamon. It allows me to end my turn putting my opponent to 1 and digivolve right up into an ultimate later, potentially putting them to 1 as well if they're trying to put me at the least amount of memory possible. Generally, they put me to 2 when they're at 1, so you can digivolve into an ultimate, put them at 1, and so on and so forth. So Numamon's pretty cool. Numamon has unbricked me a lot. Like, I've opened with like ultimates, megas, and then at the very end, that 5th card is a Numamon, and I'm like, whoop, Numamon. Second turn, I get to that mega. It's pretty great. So you gotta have Numamon. The ratios are debatable though, so figure out what's comfortable for you. 3 copies of Clockmon. Once again, this is gonna get really nasty, guys. So Clockmon, 5k DP, dies to Alter S, unfortunate, whatever. But its inheritable is opponent's turn, this Digimon gets plus 1000 DP. So that stacks with the Craniammon, stacks with anything really. So all of a sudden your Craniammon on your opponent's turn could potentially have 14k here, and that's not even including the ties that we'll see later. That said, running 2 copies of Kurisarimon. Kurisarimon's super cool. I only managed to get 2 of them. I have some more coming in, and I don't know how often I'll be playing Kurisarimon, so I might just move the others that I get. But that said, Kurisarimon is super cheap. Also, another way to unbrick yourself and actually have a blocker on the board that is 5k DP. Only 4 cost to play, guys. So it's just a strong card. Like, it's a strong mid-range card. You can stop a lot of rookie rush stuff and shenanigans with Kurisarimon. I only have 2, so I played 2. But honestly, I like these ratios already. Gardramon, 1 copy. The reason why I'm running 1 copy of Gardramon, guys, is because Gardramon is that 7k champion that is a straight up blocker. It's a beast. It has a Toyagumon stack. It'll block something. And then, reboots. Pretty cool. Yeah, so can't attack though. Pretty annoying, but I can see why. It's 7k DP. It's pretty high. Next, for the ultimates, we are running 4 copies of Andromon. So Andromon is the 7k ultimate blocker in black, and it's super strong. Like, it's a great way to bridge into Omega because you can stall a turn, preventing your opponent from hitting your security. In addition to that, it gets protected with Craniummon, so really great for that blocker engine, building that wall, so to speak. You know, Date Tech, hoorah! Next, we got 4 copies of Gyromon. So guys, I think you know where we're getting at here. You have yourselves Gyromon, which this Digimon gets plus 1000 DP. Clockmon, this Digimon gets 1000 DP. Caramon, this Digimon gets 1000 DP on your opponent's turn. Without the ties, a perfect stack means Craniummon has 13, 14, 15k, and with a tie that's 16,000 DP on your opponent's turn. That prevents Ragnalord from swinging, it prevents Alteress, Millennium, a lot of the level 7s potentially from swinging into your security. So yeah, it's pretty strong. I'll leave that right there for y'all. Lastly, teching in 1 copy of Megadramon, and the reason why I'm running 1 copy of Megadramon is because I am a firm believer in kind of incremental pressure and adding pressure onto your opponent's decision making over time, skewing their ability to make proper decisions that, you know, helps them resolve their win condition. If you can prevent them from resolving their win condition by applying tons and tons of pressure, I would do that all day, every day. And Megadramon helps that process because at a 9k DP level 5, if you have a rebooting Toyagumon underneath, you could pretty much swing over a good, I want to say 65%, 70% of Digimon in your opponent's security and still manage that Megadramon to stay alive. After that successful swing, you get in a Craniummon, and then with the reboot stack, that Craniummon jumps back up and and prepares to play some defense. So that 1 tech has actually come in super clutch. It's prevented a lot of the yellow-red security, for example, from successfully using Eden's Javelin, which it would have because it had like 8 cards, so it would have killed everything else. My opponent had 8 cards in their hand with Eden's Javelin, but unable to kill Megadramon. So now, the star of the show here, we're running 4 copies of Craniummon. You need to see Craniummon in this. So 4 copies is right there. 12k DP beast of a blocker, and all turns your opponent with blocker cannot be deleted by your opponent's effects. Gaia Force, nope. Omnimon BT1, nope. What else, man? Anything that's really just removal. Anything that says delete this Digimon, for example, on a card doesn't work. It's negated now on all of your blockers. The only way you could actually get around a deck like this is if you go wider than a deck like this, or if you reduce their DP to 0, which is why Shine Greymon was a tough matchup, or if you use bounce effects like Akaitis Breath, or Ray of Victory, or whatever. So yeah, the star of the show here, Craniummon. Oh my goodness, I actually managed to get Craniummon up to 16k, and my opponent's Omnimon BT1 just wouldn't swing. Couldn't swing, mind you. So my techs, I'm teching 1 copy of War Greymon, 11k blocker, has reboot. So War Greymon in itself can add offensive pressure, does not require the Toy Agumon underneath because it itself has reboot, which means I can Digivolve that Toy Agumon into a Craniummon, so my Craniummon has reboot, and I can prep this War Greymon to go up fairly quickly with anything else because I know that it has reboot itself, so pretty good there. Trump Sword, also out the window. Any retaliation, also out the window with Craniummon, mind you. 1 copy of Machine Dramon here. Machine Dramon has come in super clutch. There were times where once you play a very powerful Machine Dramon play, and let me paint that picture for you. It's turn 3. Your opponent has 4 level 4s on their field. They haven't found a level 5 yet. Turn 4, they get up to a level 6. They're only level 6. You haven't seen anyone else go into a level 5, anything else, nothing in raising, you know what I mean? If you hit them with that Machine Dramon, they're de-digivolving that Mega back down, and you get another de-digivolve 2 on another Digimon, and if they have nothing to draw with, or if they don't have a bridge to draw with and successfully draw, they're pretty much going to be stuck again. And if you hard play that Machine Dramon with a Craniummon out, all your blockers are indestructible, so that Machine Dramon is basically not going to get deleted as well. And now you have an 11k DP blocker that your opponent has to ramp back up into to do anything. So yeah, that one tech has actually come in really, really clutch, and I love it. I love it. This is unorthodox. I'm running one copy of Dramon, your 12k black Digimon that has an inheritable ability, and the inheritable is literally just blocker. So the blocker inheritable is so good. The blocker inheritable is so good, and you will see why. I'm just gonna leave that there. You'll know why. Anyways, I'll put the text right there. So 2 copies of Millenniumon, that is why. So once you play out a Dramon, you kind of just keep it in raising. If you got a Craniummon out, you digivolve that into a Millenniummon, and Millenniummon, when digivolving, will send one of your opponent's Digimon to the bottom of their deck, trashing all of their sources. Millenniummon as well, on deletion, if this card had any Digivolution cards, you may play this card from your trash without paying its memory cost. Beast of a card, 13k DP, comes back on any removal, so if you run out of Craniummons, or if you feel the need to press the attack because you've added that blocker pressure already, feel free to digivolve your Millenniummon from the Bri or the Crania or whatever, and then you all of a sudden have a 13k powerhouse that could potentially be like 16k on your opponent's turn. So it's unkillable, pretty much. And the blocker inheritable on Waludra has actually come in so clutch. Like, guys, if you have a Craniamon and a Millenniummon out that's a blocker, it's disgusting. What's even more disgusting is what I did in my game 3, where I had Omnimon Alter S. So Omnimon Alter S 15k, when digivolving, trigger D-Digivolve 1 on all of your opponent's Digimon, and any Digimon that remain that is 5k DP or less, they just get destroyed. And when attacking, you can actually bring back a level 6 Digimon from one of its sources to your hand in order to be unblockable for a turn. So Omnimon is a great finisher. Omnimon is a great momentum swing. Omnimon is a great blocker with a Waludramon stack. And you can actually take Waludramon or take Machine Dramon or take Craniummon from under Alter S and just bring back Craniummon, bring back Machine Dramon, bring back Waludramon for that next Millenniummon. You know, and it's very powerful. I would probably run two Alter S, 1 Millenniummon if I had the extra Alter S, but I don't. But that's okay. Like, I've found these ratios to be fairly strong, apart from a Shine Greymon matchup, so I'm pretty proud. 2 copies of Tai Kamiya, guys. So Tai Kamiya is your memory tamer. So, oops, glare. So being a memory tamer here at the start of your turn, if you have 2 or less memory, your opponent, well, you're put to 3, and all of your black Digimon gain 1000 DP. So black, they're pretty much long-winded, like, games of patience, and you're guaranteed to see your tie if that game gets that far enough, you know, and because of that, a lot of your blockers are gonna be plus 1000 DP, and all of a sudden they're that much harder to jump over. A very strong card. Very strong card. 1 copy of Joe here. So Joe's pretty cool. At the start of your turn, if you have a Digimon with blocker in play, you gain 1 memory. So the 1 memory could mean all the difference sometimes, but I didn't necessarily need to see Joe all the time. And through my draw power actually in this deck from digivolving consistently, I've managed to get Joe out, so it doesn't matter. Now the interesting part are my options. So first card, Beast Cyclone. So guys, Beast Cyclone is 3 cost to play, and all of your Digimon with blocker or reboot gain security attack +1 for the turn. So if you can play this right, you're digivolving yourself a lot, you're building that wide board, and once you have all your blockers out, all your things with reboot out, you just have that one giant Beast Cyclone turn, empty out your opponent's security, and win the game, because nothing your opponent will have, apart from maybe Cocytus Breath, Terra Cluster, or what have you, is actually going to stop these attacks. So, because removal is not going to work, right? Like, delete through Trump Sword or Gaia Force, it's not going to happen. So the only way these Digimon will actually die is if they swing into something that has higher DP than they do, or through bounce effects or de-digivolve effects. And even then, yeah, very powerful card. And you just add it to your hand from security, so it's not even a big deal. This card came in so clutch. So clutch, guys. If you're not playing at least one Atomic Ray, at most, actually, you only need one. You gotta play this in your black deck. Atomic Ray, unsuspend one of your Digimon with blocker. You're like, but Jodabi, it's 3 cost. That's so expensive. But it's like, read the security effect. Unsuspend all your Digimon with blocker and they gain plus 5,000 DP for the turn. Yeah, remember that Gotsumon that was 3k that, you know, you never blocked with, so it stayed alive this whole time? Now that it matters, your opponent, the Gotsumon's gonna be 6,000, well, 8,000, and with ties out, could be 9,000, 10,000. All of a sudden, the game has changed. The game for your opponent has changed. They're more likely to not attack than actually attack. And this could be game winning because in addition to that defensive security effect, I've also managed to use it offensively where I've swung with all my with all my Digimon, but I still have that 3 memory, so I play Atomic Ray and unsuspend one of my blockers and swing for game. And it's great. It's really great. Breath of the Gods, I only run one of. Main, one of your Digimon gains reboot, and this Digimon can have its DP reduced or be returned to its owner's hand or deck until the opponent's next turn. So this is compensating for the weaknesses that this deck has in terms of bounce effects, reduced DP, etc., etc., which is pretty good, but it's 2 cost, and the unfortunate part is that effect is only during the main phase. It's not during, like, it doesn't trigger from security. Excuse me. The security effect is pretty good though. Your opponent's Digimon can't attack players for the turn, which means your opponent basically has to cease all attacks, which is pretty good. So that is the deck, guys. The main skill ceiling or decision trees in this deck is, what do I Digivolve into what? What are the chances of me drawing into something that would make that Digivolving decision correct or the right move? And the decision also of, when do I be cycling? When do I swing? When do I not swing? So a lot of the decision making is revolving around your ability to establish a very dominant board state without having to remove, per se, your opponent's Digimon, because you quite honestly can't remove them apart from Millenniummon or Alteress without swinging over them. And when to attack, when to stay off and play defense, and when to anticipate for specific threats. But with that said, that is the profile. 22 minutes is a lot. Take care, y'all, once again. Second place with this out of, I think, 14 people placing 3 and 1, so it's really awesome. But yeah, take care, guys. Have a great day. Have a great evening.